In 2003, after I graduated from high school, I wanted to learn programming. So I enrolled at the university in a course that was named Computer Science and Mathematics Applied to Science. I remember that we had only 2 weekly hours of programming lessons and 2 weekly hours of practical sessions. I remember that the teacher was writing code on a blackboard, and we had to copy it down on our notebooks, actual paper notebooks, not the computer. The teacher had an obsession with sorting arrays of integers as efficiently as possible. And I was not even sure what was an array of integers in the first place. Actually, I remember that I barely wrote any actual line of code on an actual computer by then. So I started to drop out slowly, attending less and less classes. But soon enough, the midterm exams arrived, and we had to write code on paper. And guess what? We had to sort arrays of integers as efficiently as possible. So that was when I dropped out for good. It felt pointless, and I felt unfit. I really wanted to learn programming, but not like that. It could have been the end of it, but I was lucky enough to hear about a private computer science school in Paris that had an alternative approach. It was project-oriented and really hands-on, but it was also very expensive. I was lucky enough that my father could afford that school for me, but I know that for many other young people there, they were not as lucky as I was. This school had some amazing features that I could only dream of at the time. First, it had rooms filled with computers, enough for the hundreds of students who were studying there. And the rooms, they were filled with students day and night, because the school was open and accessible 24/7. Second, it was project-oriented and really, really hands-on. We wrote tens of thousands of lines of code. We spent countless hours actually programming. But the third, and maybe the most interesting feature, was that the students were helping each other. The students were working together and shared their knowledge. They cooperated and progressed together. But the school was also relying on more traditional educational tools, such as teachers, lectures, timetables, and diplomas. The lectures were not mandatory, and the attendance was poor. I remember that I learned the most working with my friends and solving our problems. I really thrived in that school, and I successfully graduated a computer science master degree 5 years later. I really felt connected to that school. I really felt connected to that educational model. It had basically changed my life. So I eventually enrolled as a teacher there, and I taught for 5 years. And during those 5 years of teaching, I learned many things, but I also realized how difficult it was to stay up to date. My students would come to me pointing out new tools, new versions, new libraries, new trends. I was constantly fighting against change and evolution. In only 5 years of teaching programming, I already felt old school compared to my students. In 2013, everything changed. In 2013, I joined a new project, a new school with a radical approach. The name of that school is 42. In only 5 years of existence, 42 was so successful that soon enough its concept was exported in several countries across the world, now including the Netherlands. In 2018, I had the honor to become the managing director of Amsterdam's coding college, Codam. 42 and Codam offer a cutting-edge education in computer science based on many years of experience in computer science education. It is old news that technology evolves at an insane pace. Think about the technological landscape from 20 years ago, and now compare it to nowadays. This evolution implies that most of the technologies that our students will use in 20 years from now, they just don't exist yet. So in order to stay relevant their whole career, programmers must be able to adapt to any new challenge and technology yet to come. That's why the core idea of 42 and Codam's educational model is learning to learn. We want our students to be able to seek the knowledge necessary to solve their problem, not being taught how to solve them. Our educational model is complex, but I will boil it down to 5 main features. The first one is accessibility. We don't require any diploma or experience whatsoever beforehand. We start our education from absolute scratch. But our school is also completely tuition-free. We want to lower as many barriers as possible between young people and our education. Second, we don't have any teachers and we don't have lectures. We use an educational model called peer learning. The students learn together and from each other. 3, it is really project-oriented and really hands-on. But the beauty of it is that the students are not supposed to know how to solve the projects beforehand. Identifying and acquiring the bits of knowledge necessary to solve the project is a full part of the experience. Fourth, with no teacher to assess the progress of our students, we use a system called peer evaluation. With this system, the students grade each other using scales provided by the staff. The students are evaluated by their peers, by their equals, not by someone who's supposed to have a definitive answer to their problem. The fifth is all of our students are different. They all learn at their own pace. There's a comparison I like about that is when you consider the age at which a toddler learns to walk. Should it be 9 months or 13 months? This will make no impact on the adult life of this toddler. We believe that it should be the same with learning programming. That's why our projects have no deadline. The students can take the time they need to acquire the knowledge necessary to solve them. But there's more. Failing is a full part of the learning experience. That's why the only consequence to failing a project is that the students are allowed to start over and do better the next time. It's not a race, it's about learning. With such a flexible time frame, our curriculum was designed to last about 3.5 years. Some of the students needed a bit less than 2 years to go through, and some others needed up to 5 years. But again, what matters is learning. But computer science must be much more. Computer science is a formidable engine that drives innovation. But there are only about 3,500 students studying computer science in the Netherlands each year, when the tech industry actually requires several times more. However, it is really interesting to know that in 2017, about 90% of the students studying computer science were men, leaving roughly half of the potential talents out. That's why we at Codam want to make inclusion and representation of women one of the core ideas of our identity. Because we know that only in diversity can we drive real innovation. Thank you.